Hi, I'm Brett Johnson, former United States most wanted cyber criminal, now good guy, and host of the Brett Johnson Show. On today's episode, episode 41, the Trump raid, how to steal an election, and a word on stalkers when we come back. All right, so we're back to the Brett Johnson Show. Today's episode, the Trump raid, how to steal an election, and a word about stalkers. And I'm not talking about my stalkers. Yes, I've had one or two. As a matter of fact, I like to think that when I was on the United States Most Wanted list, I view those federal authorities as kind of being stalkers because they would not friggin' stop. Now, that being said, I'm not going to talk about that. The reason I mentioned stalkers, had a lady reach out to me on Twitter, and she's being harassed, she's being stalked, and she asked for my advice. She's having a lot of difficulty there. I've seen this type of activity before, so I told her I would answer her question. I didn't have a chance to do that yesterday, so I'm doing that on today's show, and she'll listen to it. I'll send her the link to it, everything as well from there. As I said, today's show, we're going to talk about the Trump raid, give my view on that. We're going to talk about election fraud, how to steal an election, and I am sure this is going to raise the hackles of both sides, the left and the right. I was talking yesterday, Michael from Twitter, he reached out to me. Let me read you what he wrote and what my response was. That's kind of talking about what my feelings of today's episode is. But Michael reached out to me. He sent me a message. He was like, Saturday, I noticed a fraudulent charge on my wife's and my account. She calls right away, and the bank said someone had gotten her debit card. A couple of days later, she's talking to the bank about what happened, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't our bank. It was the fraudster, spoof call, acting like the fraud department, the whole deal. While talking with the bank again today, she just realized what happened. Keep preaching the good word out there to help everyone. So, Michael, hey, I responded, I'm very sorry that happened to you, but this is kind of a common technique. I go on the dark web if I'm doing criminal activity. I don't do that anymore. But if I were, what I could do is I could go on one of these criminal marketplaces, whether it be on Tor, the dark web, whether it be on Telegram or Discord or one of the surface web channels or a Facebook group or what have you, Wicker, what have you. I go on one of these criminal marketplaces and I'll buy your credit card details or your debit card details. Then I'll go out and I'll commit some sort of fraud with that. Now, I know by this point in time that you've got to probably see the charges. So I'm trying to get this card to be active as long as I possibly can. So what I'll do is I'll just spoof your bank's customer service number. Call in and talk to you about the fraud. That way it kind of is a pretext. It keeps you, the victim, from calling the bank and reporting that fraud to the bank. Let me take these earphones off because I don't really need them. Covers my big ass ears up. But that's a common technique that criminals use to victimize and to make the card live a little bit longer. So Michael had reached out and talked to me about that. And I was like, very sorry that happened to you. And I am. It's a very bad thing. And the problem, and Michael realizes that as well. He was like, they didn't get much, but cleaning up this surely isn't the new hobby we wanted. That's a lot of the problem with this stuff is that, a lot of you're protected on your purchases. Your bank is going to reimburse you. But the difficulty is in getting everything fixed across the board there. It's a huge, huge mess. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I got a piece of mail in. and it was for a spam mail. And usually I don't open that. Usually I just toss it, which is what most people do. It was a piece of spam mail from one of these subprime lenders because, hey, I'm rebuilding credit right now. Now I'm getting back where credit score is pretty decent right now, but I'm rebuilding that credit. And so I'm getting all these, these little shit loan companies. Oh, let us give you a personal loan at, $4,000 or $2,000 at 9,000% interest daily. Ha! So I opened it up and it was a denial for the loan. And the reason for denial was not sufficient income. And I'm sitting there going, not sufficient income. That was my first response, was not sufficient income. What the fuck are they talking about? I do pretty well. So, so that pissed me off. And then as soon as I realized that's that narcissism messing with me. As soon as I realized that, I'm like, wait a second. I didn't apply for that shit. So I got on customer service, called the number up, and of course, I didn't know. I was like, maybe they're spamming me or phishing me through snail mail, because I warned people about that on this show. Hey, don't respond to any unsolicited requests for information, access, data, or cash. So I called the customer service number that's on the letter, get somebody on the line, and the first words out of their mouth, we need the last 4 of your social security number. It was a lady, but hey, I don't really do lady voices that well. I mean, I could. And we need the last 4 of your social security number. And I was like, well, I'm not giving you the last 4 because I don't know if you guys even know who the hell you are. So I was talking to her, and she was trying to get me verified so she could talk to me. And this is a lot of problem cleaning this shit up. So what finally happens is I'm Googling while I'm talking to her. I'm Googling the company. And finally, I find the exact same number that I had just called in with. It was on their website. I've researched the domain. I've done all this bullshit while I'm actually talking to her on the phone. And finally, there's the last 4 of the social security number. She's like, that was quick. And I was like, no, it really wasn't that quick. I've been looking your ass up the entire friggin' time I'm talking to you. And she's like, oh, and I'm like, oh. So and that didn't even fix it. I told her what was happening. She was very friendly, but because of rules and regulations about privacy and identity and all that crap. You see, that's the problem, is you get all these regulations coming through with idiots that don't know what the hell's going on. And now they want to try to regulate crypto. That's going to be a friggin' nightmare. And make no mistake, crypto needs to be regulated, just not by idiots. And they are idiots. You know, I was watching CNN just a few minutes ago before I started recording today's episode. And for those who don't know, again, I watch CNN and Fox News every single morning so I can be pissed off at everybody. Well, this time it's CNN. They're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, where they're hiring 87,000 IRS agents. Like, we need that shit. We don't. We need inflation reduced. We need gas prices where they're affordable, where people can go to work. That's what we need. But no, Joe Biden's answer is 87,000 agents. And I'm going to bitch about more than just the Democrats today. Don't you worry about that. But CNN was even having a hard time. They were asking this some friggin' senator about, well, all these economists and schools, they are all saying that the Inflation Reduction Act won't reduce inflation. So, we know you named it because, it's politics. But how does it reduce inflation? And, of course, the senators were like, well, it's the Affordable Care Act. It's going to reduce health care costs. And that's where it's really going to help with that. A complete non-answer. And that's typical. I just wanted to go off the rails on that. But anyway, I was talking to, remember, this answer right now is about Michael and why I'm talking about election fraud and the response I expect to get from today's show. So I was talking about Michael. He shared that thing about being victimized. And what I said was, he said they didn't get much, but cleaning this mess up isn't the new hobby we wanted. Thankfully, I listened to all your stuff. And am at least a little more educated than most people and understand what had happened. My response is, glad they didn't get much. And yes, cleaning it up is a pain. You guys need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And that's the way I am. You guys, it will probably get to a point. Part of me hopes it does, because I really want my channel to be self-supporting. I don't want to have to, I don't like having a boss. All right. I'm going to say the shit I'm going to say regardless. But sometimes when I'm working for, if I'm doing a presentation or a webinar or something, they get a little antsy when I call out somebody, like I was told by the CNP group not too long, just a couple months ago, a couple of them guys from CNP, they looked at me and they were like, the truth works real well. Except when you point at somebody that, paying our bills and telling the truth on them. And I'm like, yeah, shit works like that. Shit gets funny like that, don't it? So anyway, Michael's like, just Keep cranking out the show. It's one of my favorites. And my final response, and he kind of laughed at it. He's like, I said, really appreciate that. Tomorrow I'm talking about election fraud. That will go over like a fart in church. And I expect it probably will. And we're going to get into why I really kind of expect that. I started researching this. And it's funny the way the media and the way that both sides, the left and the right, have handled this issue of how can one compromise or steal or defraud an election. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff around that today, and I think that's going to be that's going to be the meat of the episode. Now, before we dive into that, I'm going to talk about the stalking thing before we dive into Trump and the election fraud as well. Viewer comments. I already talked about Michael there for a second. So Rob Sim from episode 40, the Brittany Griner Perception of Truth and Those Stupid Passwords episode. In that episode, I mentioned at the top of the episode, I talked about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, how he had quoted Andrew Tate about a Jim quote. First of all, that quote is not Andrew Tate's. And what Andrew Tate says is, he basically says, hey, and people who work out, and I know I'm out of shape right now, but I've got a full gym. I just have been lazy the past few months after COVID and all this other bullshit. But people know who work out that it doesn't matter how you feel. You get your ass up there, you hit that pile, and you do what you need to do. And typically those days where you don't really feel like working out, those are the best workout days. And Dwayne Johnson was commenting on that. Andrew Tate had said that, I guess, on one of his little TikToks or whatever bullshit was going on. He had said, the person who goes to the gym when they don't feel like it will always be more successful or succeed more than the person who only goes to the gym when they want to or when they feel like it, which is absolutely true. And I said on that show, too, because they'd called Andrew Tate a misogynist. I went ahead and I read some more, and it turns out the dude is a misogynist. He's a bit of an asshole. My stepson, my youngest one, he was listening to my episode, and he's like, you know who Andrew Tate is? I was like, yeah, he's an asshole, right? And he was like, yeah, but he sure is popular among all people my age. And I was like, well, if people your age or not, that don't mean he ain't an asshole. So I had this guy, Rob Sim, come into the comment section. And the only thing he wanted to comment on was the Andrew Tate stuff. And Rob was justifying the guy. Well, the thing is, Rob, is, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. All right. But there's a lie that's been told for years. And it's been told to every generation. When I was a kid, when you're a kid, when your kids' kids will be kids, everything like that. And the lie is that everyone has an opinion and everyone's opinion is equal. Well, let me dissuade you of that. Everyone's opinion is not equal. Some opinions are better, more founded, and more accurate than others. Like mine, for example, when we're talking about Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is absolutely a misogynist. Now, what you said, and the reason I'm bringing you into this show today, because you wouldn't let it go. The final comment he said, Rob Sim says, my point is anyone in a relationship with Tate or any misogynistic individuals know what they're signing up for. And in this guy's case, he doesn't hide who he is. So they definitely know. My problem is the way people go after the guy, trying to demonize or vilify him simply because they disagree with how he feels about relationships and think that unless someone says the things they want to hear and lives according to their standards, they should be attacked and silenced. This has become far too common of an issue. When I look, Rob Sim, the guy can say whatever he wants. All right. He's certainly entitled to his opinion. I'm going to disagree with you when you say that people who are involved in relationships with him or other misogynistic individuals know what they're signing up for. No, typically they don't. They don't. You know, when you're in love or you're infatuated with someone or whatever the hell is going on, you got those damn blinders on. You don't see the imperfections or anything else. So you get some woman that gets in a relationship with this dude, and he becomes this guy that's, I'm going to own you. And I've seen women like this. They're not allowed to leave the house without his permission. They have to call in all the time, blah, 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 blah. I just keep constant contact. Not allowed to have friends, not allowed to have anything because he owns them, much like Andrew Tate says that he has authority over women because he does blah, 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 which is wrong. All right. I don't care if it's a woman or a male in that relationship on the opposite side of that misogynistic type of relationship. They typically don't know. And they get involved with this. And then before they know it, they're being abused because that is abusive behavior. Now, the thing is that it doesn't matter what you think. All right. I don't even care that Andrew Tate is misogynistic. I care about his victims, those poor women that he victimizes and claims ownership on. I do care about that. All right. I also care that he has a presence on these social media channels and has a huge following. No, I don't have that huge following. I don't. Maybe I can get it. Maybe not. I'm not going to change who the hell I am. And I'm not going to be the guy that tries to cater to people to get that following. I'm simply going to say what the hell I've got to say. You want to listen to it? Fine. You don't got to listen. There are tons of channels out there. There's a whole shitload of content out there. But as far as Andrew Tate goes, he's pretty much a piece of shit. Okay. Just wanted to share that. But what Rob Sims says, again, this is this whole idea that I'm seeing more and more with social media. You get some personality on there and they start by saying something that everybody can get behind. You know, yeah, I agree with that. But then once that's established, once you start saying yes, then they kind of veer off into unknown territory where you're like, I don't think I agree with that, but you know, geez. So that's something that you have to watch out for. You know, it's this whole society of, we've got a lot of people in society that want to be told what to think, want to be told what to do. They don't want to exercise their mental faculties. So they simply become sheep. And I think that's a lot of the problem with our society is that we've got way too many fucking sheep out there. We've got to learn to think for ourselves. We've got to learn that, you know, this, especially, and today we're going to do some politics talking about this bullshit, but you've got to understand that just because someone has a different political opinion than you do doesn't mean that they're your enemy. Just because, you know, so, I mean, the powers that be want you to think that. They certainly do. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to move right along with the viewer comments and get to that. Aspire, spelling with a 1 instead of an I. Episode 39. He's using that hacker spelling. So Aspire. He sends me a message. He was like, comments on episode 39. He says, as a young programmer, it's 100% correct what you keep complaining about in your podcasts about companies not implementing the minimum of security. I was hired by a big company. I'm not going to say its name, but it's pretty mainstream. And they didn't even bother to secure their SSH on their servers. It's a pretty big deal. It was really shocking. They don't use password managers or private keys for authentications. Now you see, I'm starting to smile a little bit there. I logged into one of their servers and they are currently behind over 800 security updates. You see, it just gets better. Scary part is that I brought these suggestions to them and they ignored them. Ticking time bombs. I would understand with a small company that has junior developers that don't know any better, but with a big one that has as many senior programmers and experts as this is just insanity. And I'm going to tell you, Aspire, you can't put it any better than that. I can't, there's nothing really I can expound upon other than what you just said, because what you just said is completely true. completely true. I talk about that, and thank you for pointing out that I bitch about that a lot. I got a note from somebody on one of these comments saying, he just says the same things over and over and over. Yeah, I do, because I guess it takes saying it a few times. I'm not the guy that likes to repeat myself, but evidently it takes saying it a few times, many times, hundreds of times sometimes. I wonder if I could do the same episode 4,000 times. We'll see. Anyway, what I talk about is, these statistics. 90% plus of every single attack uses known exploits. This guy's working for a major company, major corporation, notices 800 security updates that have not been updated. I mean, it's not like you don't know they're there. It says it right the hell there. You're just not updating it. And for those who don't know, who haven't heard it before, an update is just a broadcast to every single criminal on the planet telling them which door they need to knock on to get access. So yeah, it's insane. This other stuff, no password managers, no private keys, SSH. It's bad. And if you want to know why cybercrime is as successful as it is, that should clue you in right there. It's not that the attackers are highly sophisticated. You have some very sophisticated criminals out there, but most of them, no. Most of them, they don't have to be sophisticated when you have a company that practices poor security hygiene, which is what's going on here. So Aspire, what I would say to you, hey, keep pounding those drums, man. Keep pounding the drums. All right. It's you're not being heard right now. And, we've got a lot of people in this society, especially in the security vertical, that are scared to say what needs to be said. They're scared of losing their job. They're scared of losing a client, a contract, what have you. Scared of, the powers that be coming down upon them, maybe getting banned from, maybe not being invited back to speak at a conference. I don't know who would have ever had that happen to them, but whatever that is, keep doing it. Keep doing it, because we've got to get to the point where we're doing things because it's the right damn thing to do, not scared because we're going to lose some profit at the end of the day. We've got to be calling this stuff out, because if we don't, you're going to get these companies that are going, and people that are going to continue doing the exact same thing that they've been doing, that creates this vast threat landscape that criminals have just a field day on. So please keep that up. I'm proud of you doing that. It's not uncommon at all what you're seeing. I see it every single day in the industry. So please keep that up. And that's not to say there aren't companies that are doing things right. There are, but there's a whole shitload that out there that aren't. And that's one of the reasons that cybercrime continues to explode every single day. So please keep up the great work. Keep calling out what needs to be called out. We need more voices like yours in this industry. I promise you that. All right. So moving right along, Marina from Twitter. She reached out to me yesterday. Matter of fact, 23 hours ago. And she sends me a message. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So let's call this the top of the show. What is the show? Today's show is episode number 41, the Trump raid, how to steal an election, and a word about stalkers. We're going to start with the stalkers, because once I get into the election and the Trump shit, we ain't going to have a chance to do the rest of it. All right. Anyway, Marina, she reached out to me on Twitter. She sends me a message. She says, good morning, Brett. Hope you are doing well. I really enjoy your videos. I'm going to take you up on saying you will try and help targets of cyber criminals. So thank you. I don't know if I can help you, but I'm gonna give you my best advice. All right. I have an ex with a brother-in-law that are stereotypical insane hackers. Well, I don't know what a stereotypical hacker is. First, they're not hackers. All right. They're criminals. And I need people to understand that. We need to stop calling people online who are doing bad things hackers, because they're not. They're criminals. They're assholes. The sophistication for most of these people, including the ones that you're dealing with, Marina, not very high sophistication. So not hackers, not computer geniuses. They're just criminals, and we need to refer to them as such. Okay, so let me get off my high horse. Continue with your message here. The brother-in-law is highly educated and has a career in IT. When I left my ex, he began his obsession of hacking me. So, his little stalker bullshit. When I left, it's weird. He has done it on and off for over 5 years. The police were assholes, and now I understand there was little they could do. Now, pay attention to that, everybody. I understand there was little they could do. All right. So I deal with it. It's always the same. He gets into my accounts, apps, phone. Essentially, it's obvious he's there with control and fucks with my phone and being weird. Changes my language to Spanish or whatever, obviously creating fake pages, trying to trick me to sign in. He does it over and over. His brother is worse because he has a career doing this legally for a big IT company. Also, more alarming is he clearly has done this before. I wouldn't put it past him to target underage girls, as my youngest was underage when he first started targeting me. It was so scary for my daughter at the time. She had to stay with her grandparents for a bit. Is there anything I can do? I mean, from what I've experienced, if someone wants to hack you, they will find a way. Any feedback is much appreciated. I have to say I appreciate it and respect your honesty and ability to be self-aware, Marina. So there's a lot going on in that message. I read the whole thing out because I wanted viewers who are objective to what's happening to understand what it looks like when you're in the middle of this shit. Okay. Now, an objective viewer understands, well, some of the stuff that she's talking about probably just because she's in it right now and has been in it for 5 years dealing with this shit. It's not really an accurate perception of what's going on. Okay. I think it's probably gotten to the point where whatever these two idiots are doing, anything else that goes wrong, she attributes to them. Okay. Now, that's not saying that they're not victimizing her. I believe they are. Okay. But it's also saying that once you get in that mindset where when someone is hitting you as constantly on different levels, like these two are, her and her family, that you start to attribute everything that goes wrong to that. Okay. So what I need Marina first to do is to step back, take a breath, and just be objective. Just concentrate on, okay, what are they actually doing that I need to address? And Marina, you actually talk about some of that in the email, some of the stuff that I think is very objective that we can start doing stuff about. So you say, so I deal with it. It's always the same. He gets into my accounts, apps, phone. Okay. So I'm going to, instead of saying accounts, apps, phone, I'm going to say he gets into your accounts. Okay. That may be your Verizon account or your T-Mobile account, your bank account, your credit card accounts, maybe merchant retailer. I mean, there are all these accounts that someone can get into. You call it apps, I'm going to call it accounts. I don't think, unless he's actually got some sort of had physical possession of your phone and has installed or got you tricked to install some sort of malware on your phone, I don't think that he has control of your phone. I do think that he can get control of the accounts associated with the phone and the accounts associated with the apps on the phone, all of that. So we'll say account takeover. All right. We'll also say that I've got to be careful here because I don't want to give some asshole stalker out there some sort of clues on what they could be doing to further victimize their victims. So, but there's a whole shitload of stuff that I have seen dealing with stalkers in the past that these people do, and it really screws with the mind of the victim, of the people that they're victimizing. So we're going to say account takeover. We're going to say that these two people may be victimizing you in other ways as well. Maybe hitting social media, putting out lies about you, false reports, anything else. Maybe even doing even more criminal activity, setting up new accounts in your name, any number of things. Maybe social media accounts in your name. That may be what you're referring to with fake pages. Now, you've said that you've contacted the police and they were assholes. And it took you a while listening to me to understand that, well, there's not really a whole hell of a lot they can do. What I'm going to say you need to do. First, you need to step back. Anybody that's suffering from this, all right? I dealt with a company a few years ago. They had a stalker, and I mean, it was a stalker. This person set up fake pages. They terrorized the children. They set up robocalls to constantly call in and hit the phone numbers and everything else. There was a whole host of things that they did. And unfortunately, this attacker also knew how to shield their identity. So when you get somebody that's attacking you, remember I've said in the past that cybercrime motivations, there's three. There's there's cash, status, and ideology. This attack is not status. It's not cash-based. It's all ideology. So these attackers, these people who are victimizing you, they are not going away. They may get tired after a while, but shit, they've been doing this for 5 years. They're probably not going to get tired. It's a habit now. And that may be that's something that people may not understand, that haven't had this happen to them. Most people, you've got a grudge, you're angry at somebody, whatever the hell's going on, you will screw with them, or maybe you do something for a little bit, but typically you give that shit up. You've got a set of people that don't give shit up, that continue on. And this looks like this is, her ex and her brother-in-law. So here's what I'm going to say you need to do. All right. First off, you need to take a breath, step back, be objective. Really think about what they're actually doing. I do not need you to attribute every single thing that's negative that's going on to them. Think about exactly what they're doing. Have they been in your bank account? Have they taken over any other account? Have they taken over or read through your emails? All right. Be objective about it. Figure out if they've done that. Don't just assume that they've did that. Make sure you know they have. How do you know they have? All right. Ask yourself that. How do I know that they've gotten in my bank account? How do I know they've taken over this account or read my email or what have you? Figure that out, or set up social media pages in my name, what have you. Figure out how you know that. Write it down. Make a list, write that stuff down. That's the stuff that you can act upon. You contact the social media companies. You contact the bank. You contact the retail merchants, the email companies, whatever you contact. They've got a department. They've got a person there that handles stuff like this. And you explain to them what's going on. All right. Now, here's what I know. The person who's doing that, or the people who are doing that, they are not computer geniuses. They're not. I know you say this guy's highly educated and he's got a degree in IT and everything else. I deal with people with a degree in IT all the friggin' time. Let me tell you, a lot of them, I have no doubt this guy's a fucking idiot most of the time. All right. Sorry. Moving around. That's not to say. I'm not saying that everybody in IT is a fucking idiot. I'm saying this guy is, because he ain't got nothing else better to do than to screw with this woman. All right. So I don't think he's technical at all. I think he's an asshole. His degree in IT is probably customer service someplace, telling people, have you reset the device? Well, try unplugging it for a minute and plugging it back in. That's what I'm saying. All right. So contact the accounts, the company who runs the accounts, the bank, the credit card company, tax company, whatever. Contact them. Let them know what's going on. You want to see how much information you can pull about those different devices and IPs that are logging into those accounts and what they're doing on that. As a matter of fact, and a lot of these companies, you can inform them that this is going on and you want flags on the account so that they know if there's anything that's historically not happened on the account that then happens, changes of address, new cards, new charges, whatever, that it's automatically flagged. Okay, so you want that type of activity to be watched for on the account. Now, you said the police didn't really do anything or can't do anything. I'm going to disagree with that, kinda. All right. The issue is that a lot of law enforcement simply they are not educated. There's a couple of issues. They're not educated on what that stalking looks like or the effects it has on the victim. And the reason I say that is, a lot of law enforcement, I've seen this, and I see a lot of people that are the same way. Well, the stalking's happening online. Well, shit, just don't talk to them. Just ignore it. Well, you can't ignore it if they're screwing with you like this. All right, you can't ignore that. What I would do is I would continue to beat the law enforcement drum. All right, continue talking to somebody, continue filing reports. That's what it's going to take. Continue filing reports. All right, and you have to continue beating the path. You have to be proactive on this. You can't just call in, report to law enforcement that this is going on. You've got to head your ass in there, demand to sit down with somebody, talk to them about it. You've already talked to the companies that are running the accounts. Get those where you've reported. You're going to have a trail of information on that. You need to hand that over to law enforcement. If the companies will be kind enough to give you any of that data, they may not, probably they're not. It's going to take law enforcement to pull that or to contact those companies. But you start taking that proactive response to things. All right. Now, the reason a lot of law enforcement is not going to do anything or don't want to do anything is also it's that domestic stuff. All right. And a lot of the times, law enforcement starts to get involved with that. Historically, they've started to get involved with something like that. And then they go to press charges. And then the victim, I don't want to press charges. I just want him to stop. No. If you're going to go down this trail, you need to press charges. If you don't press charges, you're basically just sending a signal to that abuser, to that criminal, that it's okay to do what they're doing. And they're not going to stop with you, but even if they did, they would just do it to the next person. So you need to press charges. Do not go down this trail unless you plan to press charges. Okay. And that's a big decision. I'm going to say you need to make that decision and do that. All right. So continue to be proactive, bang the drum, go into the prosecutor's office, talk to them as well. So just bam, 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 bam. Continue filing these reports. That's what you do. All right. At the same time, what I would advise is if you know that it is your ex and that it is your brother-in-law, if you know this, you know where they work. Well, why aren't you calling their employers and notifying them that, hey, they're doing this? Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely, you can do that. Yeah, so do that as well. Call their family. If you don't know their numbers, hook up with them on social media, Facebook, what have you. Send them messages. Hey, your son, your husband, your brother, whatever, your family relative is doing this shit. Just want you to know, and they've been doing this. Bang the drum. You don't have to lay down and take anything. So that's my advice on stalking. My thing is that you've got a choice. You can either lay down and take it, or you can cowboy up and do something about it. Now, it's okay to lay down for a minute, all right, and to just let that hit you and let it wash over you for a minute. But by God, you got to get up after a minute, and you got to do something about it. You can either take it or you can refuse to take it. I'm telling you, refuse to take it. Get up there, do something about it, be proactive. All right, moving right along. And again, hey, I say moving right along, but I'm sorry this is happening to you. All right, I'm sorry this is happening to you, but this is one of these crimes where you've got to be proactive. You've got to bang that drum, because law enforcement, if you're not, they're not going to assist you. All right, so be proactive. Contact me on Twitter again. I'll help you as much as I can, walk you through a bunch of this stuff as well. All right, moving right along, the episode. Word about stalking, Trump raids, election fraud. Let's talk about the Trump raids. Everybody else is talking about the Trump raids. You tune in to Fox News, it's like, oh, democracy has ended. This is definitely political warfare. You turn it to CNN, and CNN's like, the rule of law applies to everybody, everywhere, no matter how rich, how poor, how important, how unimportant. The president is no exception. So who do you believe? I got to say, I am disturbed by the raid, and it was a raid, regardless of whatever media outlet you want to listen to has to say about it. It was a raid. It absolutely was. Now, does that mean that it wasn't justified? Well, did the dude, President Trump, did the dude turn over every single thing that he was supposed to? You see, the problem is that there's no doubt that the entire Democratic Party has a hard-on for Donald Trump. They want him. They want him real bad. And they want to hammer the hell out of him. They want to do all this other stuff. But I'm going to tell you, they wouldn't be able to do that if he wouldn't screw it around. You see, if somebody's out to get you, if you don't do anything, they can't get you. So do I believe the dude had some papers and shit that he didn't turn over? Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that. I do. And I think if people out there would be objective, I think they would say, you know, Donald Trump, yeah, I believe he would. Yeah, that's a dude that would keep some shit. He would, you know, he could show his friends. They sitting around drinking one night, playing poker, whatever they doing. That's a dude that would pull out something. Look what I got. Look what I got. That's right. See what that's stamped? Classified, baby. That's who I was. That's who I was. I was the man. I had access to all this. Matter of fact, look what it says. It says that. I'm president. I was president. That's me. Do I believe that? Yeah, I believe the dude had some stuff. Now, at the same time, do I believe that this search warrant / raid was politically motivated? Again, absolutely, I believe that. Absolutely. I don't think there's a doubt in the world about that. I think that Joe Biden, everyone knows he's not the best president in the world. It's kind of hard to be worse than Jimmy Carter. And I like Carter now. I think Carter's the best ex-president we've ever had. Matter of fact, I think Jimmy Carter is an outstanding human being. He was not a very good president. Joe Biden, even worse, which is amazing, but even worse. Do I believe that this search warrant and raid was politically motivated? Yeah, I absolutely believe that. It's the same as I believe the January 6th hearings are politically motivated. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what the hell. I don't need you to spend millions of dollars to have a dog and pony show to tell me that Trump was an asshole and kind of hoped that they would take over the Capitol so he could remain president, not just for another 4, but for the rest of his life, and then hand it down to his little family members. I don't need you to spend millions of dollars to tell me that shit. I already know that shit. Merrick Garland was on there talking about how the rule of law extends to everybody, no exceptions. We know, again, being objective, we know that is absolutely false in this country. Absolutely false. There's a reason that you've got a preponderance of African Americans in prison today, and that is not because everyone is treated equally in the justice system. There's a reason that Hillary Clinton does her 30,000 emails and nothing happens to her ass. There's a reason that Hunter Biden is going to take a pretty sweet plea deal at the end of the day. There's a reason that Jeffrey Epstein got out of his shit for a long time before they actually arrest him, indict him, and he hangs himself. Justice is not equal in this country. Money matters. Power matters. That's the truth of it. For Merrick Garland to get his ass up there and say justice is blind, justice is equal, everything's just fine, is a straight lie. Doesn't mean that Trump wasn't screwing around. No, it doesn't. But it also doesn't mean that this shit is not politically motivated, because it is. Wrong about that. You know, I served a lot of time behind bars. And I can tell you again and again, The people who get that time, they are not the people who are the important people in the United States. They are the people that can be, have that thumb held down on them every day, all day. You take those African Americans, and there's a whole shitload of them in there, a whole shitload of them. They're in there for conspiracy charges. A lot of them's in there for drug conspiracy charges. Do you actually know what drug conspiracy is? It's in the federal system. It's two people saying that you did it. That's the only thing it fucking is. That's the only thing it takes to get a conviction is you get two people saying, one person says, oh yeah, I used to buy crack cocaine from this guy. I bought an 8 ball a day, every day for 3 years. That's one. Then you get some other guy that comes up and says, oh yeah, I bought all kinds of shit from him. How much did I buy? I bought a key a week. Oh, at least a key a week. For how long? Well, I don't know how long you need me to say. Oh, yeah, at least 2 years, a key a week for at least 2 years. That right there gives two people that the prosecution can then use to convict some son of a bitch that may or may not have dealt in any drugs. He may have just been an addict. And that is where the term ghost dope comes from. Justice is not equal in the United States. For you to get anybody on television saying that, they are liars. And there's a reason they're saying that. And again, it's because this shit, in this case, this shit is politically motivated. And that doesn't mean that Donald Trump didn't do this shit. Do I think that Donald Trump had some sort of nuclear documents? I don't know. We're in this land now where, hell, the dude may have, or hell, maybe they're just saying that shit in order to get people riled up. I don't know. I do know this, and I'm a firm believer in this. I think that we are edging closer every single day to that new civil war. We are certainly, no doubt about it, going to see more and more violence. Just yesterday, we had some idiot up in Cincinnati decide he's going to attack the FBI field office. Needless to say, that didn't fare too well for the dude. All right. And while I'm on this, before we get into election fraud, I just want to make one more statement. There's a lot of people that are attacking law enforcement. We saw it during the pandemic that, we had the left wing that was attacking law enforcement. We have to defund the police. We have to defund. It's all law enforcement's fault. No, it's not. It's not. Law enforcement out there, and this is coming from a former criminal. You have some bad people out there in law enforcement. You have some people that are corrupt. You have some people that should not be in law enforcement and probably should have never been born. But the majority of law enforcement agents out there, they are absolutely amazing human beings. They are simply there trying to do their best to make this a better world and protect those people that need protecting, that can't protect themselves. We need to stop attacking law enforcement. We had it during the riots and all that bullshit that went on during the pandemic. We've got it right now on the right wing because of Trump, all the vitriol he's throwing out there. We'd have to stop attacking law enforcement. If you're going to criticize someone, criticize the powers that be, criticize the people who are in charge. The thing is that, do I think that Trump had the election stolen from him? No, I don't. Now, I don't base that on any proof whatsoever. Right. I do base it on the institutions and individuals that I trust that have said it didn't happen. And I base it on my history as a cyber criminal and under Politico magazine, how to hack an election in 7 minutes. And we're talking to, it's about Princeton professor Andrew Appel. When Princeton professor Andrew Appel decided to hack into a voting machine, and hey, I'm going to have the links to all these pages in the show notes. And the story starts out when Princeton professor Andrew Appel decided to hack into a voting machine. He didn't try to mimic the Russian attackers who hacked into the DNC's database last month. He didn't write malicious code or linger near a polling place where the machines can go unguarded for days. Instead, he bought an election machine online. So he bought this machine online, And what happens from there, he gets it in, he cracks it open, finds out that the ROMs, the read-only memory modules, the ROMs are not soldered to the circuit board. So you can unplug those, plug new ROMs in that have new firmware on there, and manipulate the the tabulation of the votes. Very effective, very easy. Do it in about 7 minutes. That's one story. We'll share screen again. I guess I'm going to keep the screen open while I go over this and talk about this for a couple of minutes. That's one story there. All right. Here's another story. This is from October 23rd, 2018, from Dell Technologies, hacking the midterm elections, lessons beyond the voting system. Then it goes in again about talking about how vulnerable the voting machines are. Here is from DEF CON. This is This Week in Tech with Leo Laporte. Love the guy. Episode 679, voting machine hacks at DEF CON. DEF CON had an entire floor that was dedicated to showing how easily it was to compromise or hack into a voting machine. Matter of fact, you notice down here the tab says an 11-year-old hacks a Florida voting system at DEF CON. An 11-year-old can do it. Here's, that's just a search I did. Here's another story. This is May 31st, 2022, from the AP News. Cyber Agency, voting software vulnerable in some states. Here is another story. False claims on voting machines obscure real flaws. This is August 13th, 2021. Okay, so you've got all of this stuff. Here's another story. June 6, 2022. Georgia touchscreen voting machines at risk, CISA claims. There's another story. Here's another story. Dating back to 2019. Hackers were told to break into U.S. voting machines. They didn't have much trouble. So you've got all of these stories that have been banging the drum about how vulnerable our election systems are, about how vulnerable the machines are. You've got an 11-year-old at DEF CON that was successful at doing it. You've got a Princeton professor that went hardware and did it in 7 minutes. It's not rocket science. The vulnerabilities are out there. And these reports go into how the manufacturers of the voting machines know of the vulnerabilities and didn't address and don't address the vulnerabilities. You've got hundreds of these security vulnerabilities on these voting. I say hacking machines. They may as well be called that. On these voting machines that can easily be compromised. So don't tell me, Christopher Krebs, don't tell me that it's the most secure election in history, because when you say that, when you say it's the most secure election in history, that is a political statement. Because if you're dealing with all these machines, and let's be honest, these machines have been talked about for years. Before Trump came into office, it was talked about how vulnerable voting machines were. And the manufacturers didn't do anything about it, much like Aspire talks about. You know, you've got a huge ass company, you've got all these security updates, and they're not acted upon at all. It's no different with voting machines. It's no different in any vertical if you want to know the truth. Okay. Now, does that mean that the election was stolen under Trump? I don't think, to me, again, my view, because I guess I'm trying to piss off the Dems and the Republicans today. My view and my opinion is that no, the election was not stolen. So many people hated Trump. It's like when Hillary Clinton ran for president. You didn't vote for the other side. You simply cast a vote against Hillary, because who the hell wants Hillary Clinton as president? Nobody. Nobody wants that shit. I'll vote for anybody but Hillary. So that's what happened. Then you get Trump in office. Trump turns out to be an asshole, which, I mean, hell, who didn't know that before the guy was elected? I don't know. But people voted against Trump. They didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. Given the two choices, I don't want Trump back in there. I'm going to vote for Biden. That was a common sentiment. I do not believe that the election was stolen because you had so many people that really disliked Donald Trump and that bullshit that he kept spewing out there all the time. Now, that doesn't mean that Trump didn't do some good stuff. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean he was an asshole and you had a whole shitload of people that didn't like him. I'm one of them. All right. That does not mean the election was stolen. I don't think that the election was stolen. I think that so many people disliked the guy that they voted against him. And that's what caused him to lose. And I honestly think that writing was on the wall. You know, it's that it goes into that statement I said a couple of weeks ago. I said it on Megyn Kelly's show. I said it on the follow-up episode as well. The perception of truth is more important than the truth itself. Facts don't matter. What matters is what I can convince you of. That is the way that cybercrime succeeds. If I'm taking over your account, it doesn't matter that I'm not you. What matters is if I can convince the bank that I'm you. The perception of truth is more important than the truth itself. In this last election, it doesn't matter what the facts are. Okay? You've got media out there, you've got all these pundits out there, and you've got a general population out there that keep on social media that keeps hammering Trump is evil, Trump is evil, Trump is bad, until you move that line enough to the side where you've got more people voting against Trump than are voting for Trump. Was Trump a bad guy? Moving right along, we were talking about how to steal an election. All right. And the machines are certainly vulnerable. Then you feed into what Donald Trump has been saying, that the election was stolen. So all of a sudden, that entire left wing has got to say, nope, everything's just fine. Most secure election in history. No, it's not. I've got tons of articles at least 5 articles here that I'm posting the links to that talk about how unsecure voting machines are. Both online, both hardware-wise, software, everything, they're not secure at all. You can get access to these machines. It would not be difficult for me, former U.S. Most Wanted guy, it would not be difficult for me to walk into one of these buildings and get access to a machine. It would not be difficult to do that. I could do that all day, every day, probably in all 50 states and the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico and Guam. During the Megyn Kelly follow-up episode, I was talking about how easy it is to register dead people to vote. And we've heard about this stuff in the past. Over the years, you know, Chicago gets the thing. Oh, you would not believe the voter fraud that used to happen in Chicago. Dead people would vote 50 times, everything else like that. So I made the statement that it was very easy for dead people to register dead people to vote. I'm not sure that anybody really appreciated what I was talking about. So I figured, you know what? I said to myself, I said, Brittany, why not show people that you used to do this shit? Because what I said is that what I used to do when you were creating a new identity, I would go to the California State Death Index. I would pull the identity of someone who died prior to 1997. All right. Someone who was born in one state, died in another. And then I would pull that identity, get the social security number, order the birth certificate, the death certificate, everything else, and then register that dead person to vote in another state. And it worked like a charm. I don't think that a lot of people really appreciate or maybe even believed what I was talking about. Turns out that your humble host of the Brett Johnson Show, me, turns out I have one hell of a memory. So let's show you. All right, so I'm going to share a screen here once again. So right here, we are on Ancestry.com. This is the California State Death Index, results from 1940 through 1997. What I did was, I was always looking for new identities for me, something I could live under constantly. So I started to use identities from the California State Death Index. And here's the way this stuff happens. So the way the federal government knows you're dead is if you, before 1998, the way the federal government knows you're dead is if you tell them you're dead. The only way the federal government knows if someone dies is if a Social Security death benefit has been filed in their name. Prior to 1998, it took the family to do that. After 1998, regulations changed. Now the hospital or the funeral home could do that for the family. Most families never filed. All right. They never filed because the benefit was only a couple $100. The families were distraught. They were upset. They had better shit to worry about than a couple of $100 going toward a $10,000 funeral bill. All right. So as such, before 1998, most of the time, the federal government doesn't know you're dead. So you can take the identity of someone, and this is this dead baby method again. You get someone that's born in one state, dies in another. Someone that's born around the same time you are, dies before they really start, living their life and everything else, dies at a very early age. You get that identity. Then you order the death certificate so that you get all the information you can, so that you can then order the birth certificate. You order the birth certificate to make sure that deceased is not stamped on the birth certificate. In this case, this name right here, Joshua Michael Kaplan. That's what I did. I got his name off the California State Death Index. You notice it's got his Social Security number. It's got his state of birth. It's got his mother's maiden name, Marks. Everything that I need. I then ordered the death certificate. That gave me everything I needed at that point to order the birth certificate. I ordered the birth certificate online, paid like $17 for it. It was not stamped deceased. From that point, I can start building that identity up. One of the ways that you build that identity up is you register that person to vote. You get that voter registration card. All right. So I registered way back in the day. I think it was like 2002. I registered Joshua Michael Kaplan, a dead person, to vote in the state of North Carolina. Matter of fact, I just pulled his ass up prior to this show. I pulled his ass up for the state of North Carolina. And here's the voter registration details. I registered him in the county of Caldwell. The status says removed, and I'm going to get to what that actually means in a minute. But the voter registration number is 144-72355. Party registered him as a Democrat. Race, white. Ethnicity, undesignated. Gender, male. Registration date, I registered him June 24th of 2002. All right. So I did register, and I registered. My registration was successful. Now it says removed. So what does that mean, Brady? Does that mean that they caught it, that they knew that it was fraudulent, that they removed it? No, it does not mean that. So I actually pulled up what it means to have what voter registration removed means. Voter registration records are not removed simply due to non-voting. Voters are removed from the voter rolls due to biennial list maintenance process. So it turns out if you've not voted in like 2 years, they send you a notification to the address on file saying, hey, we notice you ain't done nothing yet. So if they don't get a response back for that, they wait another 2 years and then they remove you from voter registration, which is what happened in the case of Joshua Kaplan, who I had a fake ID under his name, issued out of South Carolina. I had all these documents that was allowing me to live under the name of Joshua Kaplan. I was able to vote if I wanted to. Anything else I didn't want to vote, didn't need to do that, but I used the voter registration as a means of identification that allowed me to get these other things on down the line. So yes, even today, you can still register dead people to vote. That was back. The question is can you defraud an election? Yes, you can. You can do it on a hardware, software level, or you can do it by going in and registering voters, stealing people's identities to vote. It's not hard to fill out an absentee ballot in someone else's name. All right. So most people don't vote. Even to this day, most people don't go out and vote. If I can determine who doesn't vote, and yes, I can do that. If I can determine who doesn't vote and then get absentee ballots in their names, get access to those, and then send them in for the people who usually don't vote, can I sway an election? Yes, I can. All day, every day, and that is not rocket science. I have talked in the past about how everyone's information is available. Everyone across the board. I'll just give you an example. There's a site called robocheck.cm. It lists the social security numbers and dates of birth of 170 million Americans. I think they're selling that for like $3.70 each right now. Most of the time, for a nation state that wanted to do it for a dedicated group of criminals or attackers that wanted to do that, you don't even have to pay for that information. I can get the information that I need to steal the identities, to get the voter registry or the absentee ballots sent to where I need them to send in order to do that. All right. So I can absolutely do that. And if you've got a close election, do those absentee ballots count? Yes, by God, they count. They matter. Most of the time, absentee ballots don't really influence or thrust an election one way or another. But we've seen recently that those things do absolutely matter. So yes, you can do that. And if you have an unsecure box someplace where you're able to drop those ballots in, that a box that's not monitored, that makes it even easier to commit voter fraud. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, voter fraud, somebody's going to say it. Voter fraud, it don't happen. People talk about it, but no one ever does that. Well, statistically, you're right. Statistically, you are right. Statistically and historically, we see some fraudulent stuff. I mean, certainly it's happened in Chicago before, in places like that. We see it, but, it's like 0.001% doesn't happen like that. But the problem is times change. Times change. And we're in this world now where both sides are worried that the election is going to be stolen. The right wing, you've got a whole shitload of people out there that think that the last election was stolen from them. So now, by God, they're like, we ain't going to let that happen this next time. We ain't going to let it happen. No way, no how, no day, anyway is that going to happen. So they're going to be acting on that. The potential of them going out and committing some sort of voter fraud because they're scared the left is going to steal it from them, pretty damn high. You're going to have people that are doing that. On the flip side, you've got the left wing. Well, you know what? They're going to be out there. They're going to do everything they possibly can to take over. We can't let the right win. We can't let the right win. We cannot do that. So we got to do something. So you're going to have a whole shitload of people on the left that have that same mindset that we've got to do something. So I think that you've got the potential of voter fraud, of election fraud on both sides of the fence. Absolutely both sides. And add in, you've got nation states that understand, hey, shit, this ain't hard. Then you may have some people that are just anarchists that are like, I just want to see the world burn. Let's fuck around. So that's how you can do it from hardware. That's how you can do it from software. Install whatever malware you want to. You can launch DDoS attacks against portals to deny certain. Ooh, you could do that. You could launch DDoS attacks against specific community. So if a community is, by and large, 98% of them is going to vote for one party, you could launch a DDoS attack against that community so that they couldn't send their vote or vote for that particular party. The other way, and I think this is what happened in the last election, is that whole perception of truth. And I've spoke about that before. I don't think that you have to steal people's identities. I think you can. I don't think that you have to register dead people to vote and do the absentee ballot stuff and all that stuff. I think you can, and I think you can be very successful at it. I know that I could scale that properly because you don't have to do it nationwide. You just pick the certain areas that are questionable and make sure they sway toward the side that you are supporting. So I know that could be done. You don't have to screw around with hardware, though it can easily be done. You don't have to screw around with software, though I know it can easily be done. You don't have to do DDoS attacks or anything else like that, though, again, easily, very easily targeted and done. I think that what you can do that's extremely effective, Russia was very good about that, We have been very good about that when we try to control elections in different countries as well, is you skew the perception of the population. So that perception of truth is more important than the facts itself. It doesn't matter what the facts are. It matters what I can convince you of. So you get, and we see this going on these days. You've got right-wing, left-wing media, and they talk toward their base, and they skew the perception and the overall actions of their base. They get them to act the way they want them to act. You can ask, I wish somebody would give Brady a budget. Give me a budget. Let me pick out, say, five people, and I will show you how easy it is to steal an election and cover its ass up. I really think we could do that. Just to fuck with people. It's possible to live in a world where you have unsecure voting machines and the ability to steal an election. It's possible for that world to exist while having a presidential election take place that was not stolen. All right. It's just that the way media operates, typically it's a hammer, and you can't have those nuanced conversations like that. Where does it end? I think it ends with violence. I think it ends with a lot of violence. My name is Brett Johnson. This is the Brett Johnson Show. As I said just a second ago, stay safe, stay secure, stay vigilant. More importantly, at the end of the day, just do the right damn thing. I'm Brett Johnson. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.